Hello and welcome to This Inupiat Life, a program that celebrates the cultural heritage of the Inupiat people, one person at a time. I'm Frank Payuk Damiano, your host, coming to you from the top of the world in Utqiagvik, Alaska. Joining us in the studio today is Lucinda Elliott, born in Barrow, Alaska on the 3rd day of September in the year of our Lord, 1981. Thank you for being here today, Lucinda.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Lucinda Elliott. Utqiagvik is my maiden name. I was born here in Barrow, raised in Utqiagvik until the age of 11. I am married to Hayden Elliott. We have 4 beautiful children, our oldest being 21 and our youngest 4. And I have been blessed with one awesome grandson.
Oh. So what do you do for work?
I am the Search and Rescue Division Manager for the North Borough.
Okay. How long have you been doing that?
I have been with the Search and Rescue for going on 10 years this year. Recently promoted about 3 years ago.
Nice.
Yes.
So I'm sure your work and your family keep you busy. Do you have any hobbies?
I do. My family and I attend church. I like to reach out to people in the time of need. I try to encourage folks to go to church, read the Bible. I enjoy outdoor activities, walking the beach, going out boating, hunting, teaching my children about the Inupiat culture, skin sewing. I love the outdoors.
So when you talk about skin sewing, you're saying like the seal skins for the umiaks?
Not that. That's a whole. I like to think of that like as an advanced sewing. But I do.
So what do you mean by
beaver?
Okay.
Parka making, Utqiagviks, things like that.
So what's the piece you're most proud of?
I recently finished a pair of sealskin mucklucks. I took a muckluck making class this last semester, and I actually just finished the pair a couple days ago.
Nice.
Yes.
Wow, that's impressive. Okay, so you said that you were born in Utqiagvik. You were there till you were 11, so you were raised there. What was it like being raised in Utqiagvik?
It's literally like the best of both worlds, being able to go out hunting and camping out on the ocean and as well as in the mountains. It's so beautiful out there. It's amazing.
So it's on the water.
Yes.
Right? And I understand now if you go there, you have to rent a car because they don't like people like me walking around out there with all the polar bears.
Yeah, basically, somebody should probably be chauffeuring you around because of all the polar bears.
So how would you handle it as a native when you'd be out hunting? You just have, I'm assuming you'd have the security of a group, you'd have weapons with you, but you must have been worried about it too when you were walking around.
Well, it's not as overpopulated with the polar bears from back then as it is now.
Okay.
So
what happened there?
I'm pretty sure it's due to the global warming, the melting of the sea ice, and just all of the polar bears migrating to land.
Coming close, yeah. So they're not. There's not much sea ice, so they're actually closer to the village than they would have otherwise been.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. So what else about your childhood in being raised in Utqiagvik can you share with us?
Well, my sisters and I would always go out with my parents hunting and camping, and we would go out and meet up with my dad's brothers and their family. We learned a lot of our culture from our great aunts and uncles as well. They made sure to teach us how to pluck ducks, to cook them over the stove in the tents, and ice fishing and all of that other good stuff.
I love duck. Duck has to be one of my most favorite foods, just FYI. So, next time you're making some duck, feel free to extend an invite.
For sure.
So what is your earliest memory of life?
It has to be looking out the window, watching my siblings go to school and wishing I could go to school too.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Was there anything else than that, or just, man, I wish I was going to school with my siblings?
Well, they would, we lived right across the street from the school. So just watching them go to and from the school was, something, wishing I could follow them. That little sibling following your big sister thing, or
Very relatable.
yeah.
So who is your mother?
My mother is Linda Akutchuk. Her maiden name is Ongorok.
What can you tell us about her?
She's the best mother in the world. She is definitely a big blessing to me and my family. She teaches all of her children and grandchildren the ins and outs of skin sewing, cooking, baking, learning how to take care of each other, really.
Wow. What did she do?
Growing up, I watched her serve on the Student Advisory Council. She advocated for the children for many years. So that was one of the earliest memories I remember of her teaching in the school and advocating for the kids.
So who is your father?
My father is Benjamin Piakuchuk. He was born in the area of Utqiagvik, so that's why I was able to be raised in Utqiagvik the first 11 years of my life. Really great father. I really look up to him a lot. Hard worker, loves to joke around with the kids and the grandkids.
Well, I hope you got him a coffee mug that extolled the virtues of what a great dad he is.
Yeah.
At least that's what we do in the lower 48.
Yeah, we usually like to shower our parents with great gifts, something that they could hold on to.
Is there anything notable you can tell us about it, like hobbies that he did or work that he did in his lifetime? Anything you'd like to share about him?
My dad is the type of person that cannot sit still.
Okay.
He always is a busy bee, like no matter what. Even after retirement, he was always doing something around the house, maintenance to the home, to the vehicles. Loved being outdoors. You cannot stop my dad no matter what it is.
So share some happy memories from your childhood.
It has to be being able to play outside during the summers with my friends, fishing off of the boat docks or fishing right off of the bay in Utqiagvik.
So would you gut and cook the fish you caught yourself?
Well,
Or
I
would you
didn't
bring
really
them home
catch
to your
much,
parents?
but I was able to bring some home.
Okay, fair enough. And that's the best way to do it, right? To give the fish to someone else.
Yes.
I only fished when I was younger as well, and that was always let someone else deal with that. But part of me kind of regrets that I never did that myself.
Yeah. I think it's something that you can really enjoy growing up in a different part of Alaska, being able to go out with your friends, just walking there, because it's an island. It's definitely smaller than Barrow, so you're able just to walk there with your fishing rods and your cooler and just be out there all day long and just enjoy it.
It seems to be a common theme of Utqiagvik is that sort of the outdoorness of it all and being able to enjoy that. So thank you for sharing that. So were there challenging times during your childhood that shaped who you are today that you can share with us?
Yes, definitely. Moving from a small village to a much larger community, really made a big difference for me. I noticed that I had to really pull myself together and really stay protective of myself and my siblings. Being aware that you're around a lot more people than you were before. People, strangers, even though our communities are usually built to look out for one another, I just didn't know people coming to Barrow, just immediate family. And so
it certainly must have been a cultural change for you. I mean, how many people were in Utqiagvik at that time when you were 11?
about 200.
Yeah, and so you went from 200 to over 2,000, and there's probably like 4,000 even then, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you went to a place that had 20 times the people, just to put it in perspective. So I can see how that would have been requiring an adjustment. What did you do? Is there any kind of advice you can pass on to other people that experienced something like that?
I think I was more observant of my surroundings, definitely taking note of who I was around, what I was doing, and what other people were doing. And I think when you move from a smaller village to a larger one, that's probably one of the things that people should be aware of is their surroundings when they're traveling. Even when you're traveling now, going from the village to the bigger city, always be aware of your surroundings.
So how close were you with your grandparents?
Well, I grew up knowing both sides of my grandparents. My grandparents are Mary and Isaac Akutchuk. And
Mother's side or father's side?
that's my father's side.
Okay, and your mother's side?
So they lived in Utqiagvik. And my mother's side, my grandparents were Max and Ethel Ongerok. And I knew them very well. I used to go over to my grandparents' house in Utqiagvik to have dinner, enjoy time with the cousins there. My grandmother only spoke Inupiat, and there were times where I wish I understood her because I wasn't raised in a fluent home, although my parents did speak to each other in the Inupiat language. It was definitely different because we were spoken to in English a majority of the time. But my parents still do try to teach myself and my children how the Inupiat terms, and how to use it properly.
So is there anything else you can tell us about your Aka and Appa?
My grandparents here, actually, we would come during the summers and spend the summer with my grandparents here. My grandmother on my mother's side, she loved baking. I miss her pies. She would make for family dinners. We would have family dinners here all of the time, and the whole family, my mother's siblings and their children would come together, and we would play outside during the summer and just have a great time. So,
what kind of pie would she make?
her pies: raisin cream pie, pumpkin pie,
Nice.
cherry pie, blueberry pie.
Cherry?
Yes.
Where would you get the cherries?
Well, from the store.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know. I mean, they have and the tundra has the berries.
Yes.
And I know that and they're only available in the summer, and they're small, but they're as small as they are. They're very flavorful. And that was actually, I understand that those little berries that you would have to painstakingly scavenge from the tundra actually made the most delicious desserts. And I was able to try some, a couple of them, and I can vouch they were delicious.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had made any desserts or confectionaries from those, I'm sure they were great. This is the time of the show where we talk about intergenerational trauma, and it's to raise awareness more than anything else, to help people sort of identify it, be aware of it, in the hopes that we can play a small part in helping break the cycle. So Duke University defines intergenerational trauma as a concept developed to help explain years of generational challenges within families. It is the transmission or sending down to younger generations of the oppressive or traumatic effects of historical events. In the case of the Inupiat, it would be being sent to boarding schools where you were punished for speaking Inupiaq. But it's not, that's just one example. It can also be any kind of abuse or social ill, substance abuse, that kind of thing, where, the general idea is that the, parents have to be very careful because they can essentially instill bad habits in their kids and vice versa and vice versa. And this can go on for generations. And the only way to stop it is to be aware of it and to cut the cycle. So what do you know about intergenerational trauma?
When you mention intergenerational trauma, I think of the addictions that our parents and grandparents have picked up during the time when they were introduced to alcohol or to marijuana, and then later on, harder drugs within the community, and I think that our generation, the generation that I live in right now, has the opportunity of not only experiencing the addiction of drinking and using, but we also have the opportunity to fix that, to change that, to catch it early on to where we can make the changes and end that cycle of addiction.
Do you have any advice on what you or other people could be doing to help break that cycle?
Definitely just being there for each other, having no judgment against one another, because we all struggle in some type of way and you never know what type of day somebody's having, so.
Amen. There but by the grace of God,
Yes.
go I. Excellent. So what changes have you noticed in Inupiat culture in your lifetime?
I think that our culture is slowly dying, but I also see that the college has picked up a lot more of the lack of our culture and trying to keep it alive and introducing the hunting skills to more of the kids that don't have the opportunity to have been raised in a full native family. Some of the families today are, one of their parents is native and the other is not. So they're able to bring that back into instilling that into the children today.
So are there any changes you'd like to see in Inupiat culture?
I think we are on the right path to trying to gain the culture back. And the Rosetta Stone actually has the Inupiat speaking. So I think I'd like to see more kids learn the language and try to communicate with one another.
Excellent. So which Inupiat value is your favorite?
It's humility.
So how has that value influenced your daily life?
I have always been reminded, to stay humble, no matter what you're going through. I believe that I was raised to where I was to stay humble regardless of my circumstances. We are blessed to live in a great home, but there's people that are struggling that don't have the luxury that I had growing up. And even though that luxury, I think of, somebody else's luxury may be defined as something else.
Understood. So what is your favorite traditional food?
I can't pick just one, but definitely Utqiagvik.
What's that?
That is fermented whale meat, the muktuk, the tongue. It's so delicious. It's tangy, that tangy taste that hits your tongue right when you know it's finished.
So teach us an Inupiat word.
Utqiagvik.
And what does that mean?
Utqiagvik is faith or trust or your belief.
Can you use it in a sentence?
I'm not very oral speaking in the Inupiat language.
Fair enough.
So I apologize.
No, not a problem. So what's the most important thing you've learned in your life?
The most important thing, it has to be, no matter how hard of a circumstance that you go through, to always pick yourself back up. So,
Excellent advice. So who is the person you admire most?
my mother, she's a strong-willed person who's always cared for her children and grandchildren, homemaker, taught us a lot. So
it's time for a song or story. You got to do at least one.
okay, let's see. A story time. There was once where my cousin Jennifer and I made some Utqiagvik pies, the berries that you mentioned earlier, to sell in fundraising for our uncle. And we decided to stop at the high school one day. We had already sold the pie, so we ran out of the car really quick, only to accidentally drop the pie. It was so embarrassing. So we had to contact the person back, and we're like, oh my goodness, we're so sorry, but here's your money back. Utqiagvik pies are the best. How embarrassing is it to have sold one and then to have to give the person their money back?
I would have told you, you can keep the money. I want the pie. Make another one. So they just took their money back and that was the end of it?
Yeah, that was so embarrassing.
So what went through your mind when the pie fell on the ground?
We couldn't believe it. We were like, oh my goodness, because we were like en route to go and deliver it, and we couldn't believe that it happened.
Did the thought at least flash through your mind, I wonder if I can save this?
No, because it had already flopped over.
Okay.
It's just something funny. My cousin Jennifer, she's passed on now, but we always had those funny moments of like, oh my gosh, did that just happen?
Right. So it's time to make a wish. If you could make one wish on behalf of the Inupiat people, what would that wish be?
I wish that we had a faith-based treatment center here. That is one big thing. I think a majority of our people, believe in God, and we live in a whole different environment than the rest of the world. We experience the 24-hour darkness, 24-hour daylight, and we have a very high suicide rate. And a lot of people fall into addiction because there's nothing else to do in a lot of our villages. We don't have the road system in and out of the big cities like most places do. And I think a lot of people just resort to drinking or drugging. And I think that it's gotten a lot more intense these days, that our resources fall short sometimes. And I think that if we had that faith-based resource available, that I think a lot more people would find it more helpful to go into a place where there's no judgment and admit that they are struggling, and that people on the other side will let them know that there is comfort there and that there's help. There's always hope at the end of the tunnel. So
is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers?
Not at the moment.
So thank you for speaking with us today, Lucinda.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to ASRC for providing our set decorations. It does really help make the place look good. If you enjoyed this show, please take the time to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Those likes and subscribes really make a difference. Also, click the notification button so you can be notified when future episodes are released. If you're interested in appearing as a guest on this show, pause the video now and scan the QR code on your screen to fill out our sign-up form. And finally, we're most grateful to you, our viewers, for showing interest in the cultural heritage of the Inupiat people and supporting our show. Until next time, Koyanak.